Hi everyone, Amber here from Attaboy Animal Care and Pet Sitter CEO. I got the exciting opportunity to speak at a national conference in Savannah, Georgia, a few weeks ago for a National Association of Professional Pet Sitters, which is one of the leading nonprofit pet sitter organizations. And my speech and conversation to the over 140 attendees was about like the top five mobile pet care services that as a professional pet sitter that you may want to expand out into. And then it got me thinking like this is also businesses that you can start from the ground up as your primary pet sitting business or pet care business. So a lot of people tend to ask like, okay, what can I do as a professional pet provider? Whether you were a veterinary technician learning to do something new, or you're graduating with an animal science degree and you're not pursuing vet school anymore, like myself when I was in that age bracket and situation of my life, what else can I do? And besides pet sitting, which I talk about a ton on our channel, I wanted to talk about some key other mobile pet services that you may want to consider looking into doing as a person. And as a pet owner, these are mobile pet services that you may want to look into for your area to help you take care of your pets in a more streamlined and easy process. So let's get started. First and foremost, besides pet care and pet sitting, dog walking, which is a very common professional pet company that's mobile, obviously you're driving to the client's home and taking care of their pets. My first next recommendation that has very low income to start to get into the industry and very low medical or professional expertise to get in the industry is mobile pet care waste management, also poop picking up. And now people may go, well, I don't want to pick up some shit, that's fair. But most pet jobs in the pet care industry start that way. I started working picking up, as they like to call it, mucking horse stalls, aka picking up pet. And so because of that, you learn to do the bare basics. You get a great outcome for it, and you learn other animal stuff while in the process. Also, anybody can really do it as a professional. Start your registered business as an LLC, DBA. I always recommend LLC in your state. Then get some pet business insurance, which for pet waste management is fairly low cost. Set up some systems processing, find a booking software if you want to. That is ideal, of course, to maintain scheduling and routes of driving. And there's a handful of out there for pet waste management. Register with an organization. There's APAWS, an American Professional Animal Waste Management System organization that does a biannual conference every 2 years to learn a lot more about pet waste and get some basic supplies. You're going to want some type of marketing material, whether it's a Facebook or website, ideally, some type of business card. I prefer rat cards, and then your actual pet waste management stuff. So, your poop picking up type scoopers, and then of course some type of bags, and then how you're going to manage taking away the waste. Some people choose at ease leaving it in the client's trash cans, or the client purchasing a secondary trash can that's specifically for the pet waste that they can then dump into their primary trash can when it's trash day. It depends on your local jurisdictions if they allow their county waste bins, or they require you could have any type of waste bin that you want. But really, that is a really streamlined process, and you're looking at a very low investment cost, depending on how much your LLC is in your state, to be able to start this pet waste management. It's really up and coming. People really prefer it, especially in states that don't get a ton of rain, because that allows the pet's waste to build up into their backyards and front yards or wherever they're doing it. Most people do it off of square footage that they're covering. So how big the yard is, and then how many pets there are, because that will determine how much waste there is going into that backyard. And then, of course, setting them up on a schedule of every week or every other week will also determine how much poop you're picking up weekly or every visit. So that'll determine how much time it takes. And really, you're charging by time. You're charging by how much your technician that's doing the care takes to do the gig. Especially a first time pet client, you're going to have probably higher waste increase. So you're going to want to allot for that first visit being more and longer to pick up that pet waste ultimately. So next process is, of course, figuring out, if you want to also add a chemical component. A lot of professional pet waste pickup companies spray the lawn or where the poop was at with some type of enzyme that is on the market. There's a handful of chemical and enzyme based, so natural versus non-natural based components to basically, they'll call it sanitize in some ways, but it's to break down any additional waste that's there. It's not going to necessarily kill your parvovirus or your parasites that may have been in that fecal waste. But if you go a route of chemical based, then you have to be cognitive of if it's safe for pets, if it's going to kill their grass, which can cause costs because you don't want them to charge you because they have to get it regrassed because it blacked out or yellowed out their grass, especially with HOA communities that are very particular with that situation. So consider those, do your research, and go from there. Now, second business that you may be interested in getting into to expand your pet care business is a mobile grooming facility or a mobile nail trim facility. So grooming, of course, you're going to want to do some certification processes. You're going to want to do some on-the-job training processes. Some people, when I say grooming, there's like different levels of grooming to me and in the grooming industry. Some people call themselves groomers and they do very basic cleanliness maintenance. So, basic baths, basic ear cleaning, external anal gland type of not removal, but release, because you can't do the secondary version, which is internal anal gland release, unless you're a veterinary professional in a hospital with a doctor typically. And then no type of shaving situations or cutting of the hair, unless there's like a small mat or something stuck in it. That reduces your potential of liability because you're not putting sharp things on skin and next to animals. Then you have your next level of bath stuff, which you add your nail component to it. And then your next level is when you do cuts and trims with razors or scissors. Some people hyper focus on, we just do baths. Some people hyper focus and they just do nails as an example. And so the basic things you're going to want with that are dependent on if you plan on using a client's home internally to do those processes, or you plan on purchasing a mobile like shuttle bus van system that is air conditioned that you're then bringing the pet into. Of course, purchasing a bus of some sort, a rig, is going to cost you significantly more than doing the client-based home. I do know groomers that have done the client-based home where they have like a mobile, that collapsible table situation, grooming table, and they bring in their supplies of cleaning supplies and other instruments to do their job and use the client's sink or bathtub as the cleaning mechanism. It is very heavy and hard on the body because you're having to bring in very heavy materials, get on your knees to clean in a bathtub type setting. You probably gonna have the people in the home, so they're like watching every move that you make, understandably, because it's their home and they're present for the groom. That may do well for some dogs that have high anxiety or stress levels, but there are pros and cons with that. The negative of the rig situation is the cost associated with it and the process and procedure of procuring a water system in that bus and procuring a vacuum system in that bus and all the other supplies that you may need for it. So because of that, the cost is astronomically higher. An average grooming van that you purchase, either used, if someone did like a DIY job on it, can even range in the $25,000 cost range with a used rig. And then if you purchase like a professional rig where someone has fully like bulked it out with everything you may need, you can look into the six figures even for a really high professional rig that's for grooming. So the cost factor is much, much, much higher. And any type of rig, if you're looking at a trailer, brand new cost, you're looking at about $6,000+, a shuttle bus, $100,000+, a transit van on brand new, $60,000+. If you did like a school bus type situation, you're looking at like $250,000 for those. Now, of course, when you go used option, most of those prices get cut to anywhere between a third to a fifth of the cost. So your trailers you can get for about $2,000-3,000. Your shuttle buses 15 to 20. Your transit vans, about $30,000, depending on how many miles are on them. And same with the buses slash RV systems. If depending on how much work they need to be put in, it depends on the cost, but you could get them as low as 50,000 on some ranges of that. So then, of course, you have other factors. And anytime you have like shuttle bus or rigs that you have to think of, you have to think of the vehicle maintenance itself. You have to think of if you're wrapping it with vinyl or putting any type of decal process on it or painting it. You have to think about the auto insurance. You have to think about your gas, diesel, natural gas, whatever process you're using to drive it, obviously. And then, of course, you have the pretty factor. So all the internal stuff that you want to decorate, upgrade, the flooring, the walls, your supplies themselves. And then, of course, last but not least, cleaning supplies. The amount of cleaning supplies you need for any type of rig with dealing with animals is huge. So you have all those factors to deal with. Now, of course, your next type of bus or shuttle mobile situation that you may be interested in doing is transportation. Transportation is another low cost level, potentially, depending on how you do it. There's a variety of ways to do it. So it depends on if you do it the best way or the not safest way as well, depending on, and that ultimately depends on what type of cages you're putting into your shuttle bus or rig or van that are making it the safest to transport animals. Now, any transportation of animals, you need to have a registered license with your state and the government to do transportation of animals. It's really simple and easy to fill out. It's free to register, but it's something that is required, and it's something that they're making sure you have all the things that you need to do animal transportation. It's usually with I think it's with Department of Agriculture that you fill that out. I have to double check that. And then your next step is determining if you want to, what type of cages you want to use. Wire cages are not recommended for transportation, but they're the cheapest. You do want something that's usually a hard plastic type situation that is intended for transportation, typically like on airlines, because the biggest concept is if you get in a car accident, what's going to happen to those animals. And if you do wire, it can impale and kill an animal, and then they can pass away, of course, or get major injuries that can cause pass away situations, versus your harder plastic rig containers to hold the animal are less likely to do that. So again, your cost and transportation related to starting that business is all related to the rig and what you put into it. Then your next thought process is your nail trimming, which goes with that grooming, is really becoming unpopular. There's a local business with me in Lakeland, Florida, that is called Lucky Puppies Nail Specialist. And they started as a travel, but actually they were pet sitters initially, and then they did mobile nail trimming, and it got so popular it outweighed their income and needs for pet sitting. So they specialized and niched directly into nail trimming with a Dremel type process to reduce the nail and shorten the nail without hitting the quick and causing a low stress environment for the pet. Then they recently, a few years ago, opened up a brick and mortar facility that does that same thing. They also offer the mobile with a shuttle bus, mobile, and then they have their brick and mortar facilities that people can pop in and do this low stress nail trim or nail shortening process. Very popular, extremely well wanted, really great for even those pets that do horribly at home at the groomer veterinary kennel situation that tries to trim nails naturally with like a clip type cutting process, or even Dremels at those facilities, because they don't have to do a pickup and drop off. The owner is there the whole time. So it reduces that stress level astronomically, which is super cool. Then you have, excuse me, veterinary technician checks. So if you are a veterinary technician by trade in your state, if you have a certification requirement like an RVT or CVT, versus other states that are not as regulated, like the state of Florida, where anybody can call themselves that if they've had some experience typically, but there's no certification required to participate in those job duties. You could do veterinary technician checks, but you have to be extremely careful because it is a gray area. State by state requirements vary. Ultimately, you can offer your services business to business. So you can connect with a veterinary office and they hire you as a third-party entity to do at-home veterinary technician checks for their clientele. And you work directly with them, but you're not an employee. You're like an independent contractor or service that they're purchasing to do that. Then the second thing is doing certain things that are legally required or legally allowed, such as maintenance of pet care services that the client is providing all of the supplies and you're doing it. So this could include insulin, A client needs help medicating a pet, like the vet has prescribed a pill, but the client can't pill. You could pill the pet. You could check insulin levels with their machines, like blood glucose monitors. You could provide and give the fluid therapy, that if they provide the fluid bags and the needles and the lines that the veterinarian provided them, you could assist with that process, and just do general checks post-surgical. So like a bandage change of some sort post-surgery, or checking a wound to see if it needs to go to a vet. You can't diagnose, obviously. That's a huge no-no. And you can't prescribe. Obviously, that's a huge no-no. And you can't tell them what they need to do. That's a huge no-no. It's mostly going, yes, this needs to go to a vet, or yes, I can continue this maintenance because you can't. This is extremely popular with the elderly population that have a hard time getting on hands and knees, maybe, or manually pilling a pet, like having to put the pill down their throat with a pill popper or your fingers or something of that sort, and they don't have the physical strength or abilities to do that. This is assisting them in those services that are being prescribed by the veterinarian ultimately. And last but not least is your mobile dog treadmill services, or slat mill services. These treadmills or slat mills technically, are self-propelled by the dog's motion, and there's a lower risk of the pet overexerting itself or being forced into exercise that can cause demise ultimately. They are put onto a shuttle bus type or van situation. You travel to them, or you do community spots where people meet you there. You do 20, 30-minute sessions. The pets come, they run or jog or walk at a nice pace to burn exercise or burn calories, and mental stimulation, because they're getting the sights, the sounds, the motion, the feedback from the treadmill. They're getting all these different experiences that really make them work and think about their motion and placement. And then, of course, they get the exercise benefit, where most of these treadmills, flat mills, have pedometers that can track how long they're walking, how far they're walking, and how fast they're going during this process. It's really fun for the owners. It can be great for the pets. Not all pets are created for this. We don't recommend doing it for pets under 6 months old, because their bones and tendons and muscles are not properly growing, and they're still not fully even connected in some ways. It's like asking a toddler to run a marathon, very unsafe. Then you have your other aspects of medical issues that can be exacerbated with exercise. So it should be veterinary recommended, such as if you have a pet that has congestive heart failure, that's probably a hard no, that they can't do this, because that would be overexerting their heart most likely. But pets that are obese and need weight loss, this may be a good process. Post-surgical situations where they need low impact exercise at a maintained level that you can control their exercise and how fast they're going, this may be a good option for them. There's a variety of options. So that is another great business that's up and coming in the industry. I highly suggest, just like the veterinary technician, if you are thinking about this mobile treadmill, that as a pet owner or as a pet professional, you should not be doing that unless you have extensive exercise knowledge with pets. So, or, animals or horses are a very common transition. Learning about gaits, muscles, weight loss, dietary needs, and those aspects are all part of this exercise component, and not anybody should just be starting a bus and just exercising pets. Excuse me, because if you let a dog get on there and they start just running immediately, you may think, oh my gosh, this dog loves it. In actuality, it could be a fear-based approach that they're running because they're in shock and they just don't know what else to do, and they don't know how to stop, and you haven't trained them. And then they can get hurt, because it's like walking outside after never running for years, going for a run and not properly stretching your muscles. Excuse me. It can cause major injuries that can be lifelong or take a long time to heal from. Plus, ultimately, the pain associated with that is going to make the pet fearful of that process in the future. So highly recommend not doing that. And I highly recommend not using a professional that doesn't have exercise, medical knowledge, veterinary knowledge, animal body knowledge in general, that is starting these buses or doing fear-based approaches. I hate when I see people doing these buses and they put on like masks for Halloween and they think it's so funny, and you see the dog like eyes just freak out, and they think it's funny for a part like a TikTok video or a real video because they're getting the likes off of it, and then in actuality you're scarring the dog or whatever. So hard pass for me on that. So those are the top 5 mobile trends of pet businesses that you may want to start or may want to start using as a pet owner. I look forward to answering any questions you guys may have. And if you have any interests or you're a professional that does one of these, I'd love to hear from you as well. It was great talking to you. As I always say, happy pets, happy people. Bye.